All right, I'm back. This is Chris Perkins for part 2 of the DM commentary.
Shields are 3 legendary relics entrusted to dwarves of the Malerkin clan, who were the builders of Undermountain. Basically, they had these 3
I didn't make that up. The Malerkin clan is real. I pulled that information out of some Undermountain books that I had brought with me.
To which she adds, yes, and it was recently discovered...
The Sentinel shields, however, were completely made up. On the airplane to Hollywood, I came up with this idea, very simple storyline, that there's this halfling who has taken over the residence of a dwarven wizard and learned that the residence covers up an entrance into Undermountain that leads to the tomb of a dwarven champion, who was known as the Orc Slayer. And I wanted to make this a fairly straightforward experience for the players, so it was, you know, go down into the tomb, find the MacGuffin, get out, and give it to your benefactor. With a couple twists, which hopefully I'll talk about later. So this particular dwarf, the Orc Slayer, was sort of themed along the idea of I had all these orc skeleton figures that I wanted to use, and I thought, well, what would a dwarf called the Orc Slayer adorn his tomb with? Probably the skeletal remains of those he'd killed. And I thought those orc skeletons would make a fine future encounter, and they will. And then I thought, well, I like the idea of he wasn't just the only dwarven champion that was entombed down here, that there were 2 others, the Iron Warlord and the Heartless Dwarf. And these would be sort of give the players a sense that the world is a bigger place, that, you know, if they were of a mind to, in future adventures, they could maybe go and try to find the tomb of the Iron Warlord or find the tomb of the Heartless Dwarf. And I was also thinking, maybe as part of the D&D Encounters program, or some future program, maybe even a future video cast, we might be able to take these other ideas that don't figure prominently into this adventure and gain some use out of them. Or maybe somebody listening to this video cast will be inspired to create the tombs of the other dwarf champions, either for their own campaigns or maybe as a submission to Dungeon Magazine.
Asking if she was going to use the shield for evil.
Also, the coin sack is gone.
She says, I do hope that you were discreet in coming here. I would certainly hate any of my rivals to know that what I found.
I told no one.
The rivals. I had envisioned that the NPC Trillian Galloway was not the only one who knew about the shield of the Orc Slayer, that others have probably tried to find the entrance to the Orc Slayer's tomb, or tried to take over the residence which he currently possesses. And I envisioned that this adventure would end with the characters returning the shield to Trillian, and then one of her rivals showing up to take it from them. And as this adventure was progressing and the players were getting into their characters and we were running combats, it became perfectly clear to me that we probably wouldn't get that far into the adventure, that we'd be lucky just for them to get the shield and then get the hell out. So, I won't give any more away, but if we do get the gang back together again for another video cast, maybe I'll just pick up where this game left off.
I need finances. This is a great opportunity for us to build our name. We could incorporate. We could become known the countryside over.
This guy right here, Dan, he's the instigator of all of this. He shackled these guys and brought them in, and big D&D fan. And the only active 4th edition player in the group up to this point.
She says, well, in the interest in cementing our relationship, she snaps her fingers, and you see Zarko produce a bottle of wine. And he lays out some tankards and pours drinks for all of you and the 2 of them. And,
Zarko sounds much cooler than he actually is. I envision that this dwarf, wearing these double suit of armor and carrying these 17 weapons, was meant to look like a badass, but like he actually had a glass jaw, so I actually kind of painted him in my mind as a minion. You know, if he took one hit, he'd go down.
Because you are twice his height.
Could I do some sort of knowledge to you know, at the mention of spiders, if there's anything I might know about what we would need to defend ourselves from spider folk?
Yes, absolutely. Make a knowledge, a dungeoneering check in this case.
Okay. I got a 21.
When you start to ask a little
Good
bit
roll.
about, or you sort of contemplate the types of spiders that might actually be lurking down underneath the city, based on reports and other adventuring reports and things that you've heard, you think that basically they, other than being poisonous, they can just be smashed into a pulp with big weapons or blown to bits with spells. They're fairly rudimentary dungeon dwellers.
All that, you know?
I am not talking. I must be enamored with the sound of my own voice. No, that isn't it, but I just have nothing to say. Yet. Here they're sort of trying to figure out what they're in for.
But none of you don't have any...
I've got a bunch of miniatures hidden behind my DM screen there, but they don't know what I got. I had to travel fairly light. I brought my 3 core rulebooks, I brought some Undermountain references, which I could read on the plane, brought my dice, brought my minis, brought the big rollout maps, which you can see in the middle of the table there. Let me talk a little bit about maps for a second. When I laid the maps out, I didn't bother to hide parts of the dungeon. I pretty much just sprawled the first map out there. They could see pretty much everything that they were in for. Mostly because it just would have looked bad on camera to put this big map down and then cover it up with little pieces of paper or some stupid thing. I used wet erase battle maps because they were easier to roll up and take with me on the plane.
So we're going right in, huh?
I didn't want to have to, before the game, fidget with too many little pieces or dungeon tiles or anything like that. So this was just easier for me.
You are stealthy. Yeah. So you can go way out in front?
The wet erase battle maps also allowed me to add a little bit of artistic flourish to the maps. One of the things I'm known for around the office is my map making. I will often do big, giant, elaborate maps on whiteboards and then add my own grid. And they tend to stay up on the whiteboards for several days because people are loath to erase them. I got a bit of a drafting background.
I think Bluebell has a couple spaces on us because he's being stealthy.
All the maps with their little rough-hewn walls, and I drew in all the little bits of rubble, and I'm a sad, pathetic creature.
Put a meat wall behind me. Because I'm in a robe.
Safely in the middle and entertaining people with song.
Meat wall is a technical term.
Well, you are very pleased that this staircase has remarkable acoustics. It's like your voice just descends for miles and then comes back to you. And it sounds quite entrancing.
I don't know who that person is walking in the background.
Which was a little tough to navigate.
Oh, I think she was one of the people who of the club who were helping us find tables and chairs. This club, finding pieces of furniture that actually kind of looked like they matched, was a Herculean chore.
Astute senses can make a
But I gotta hand it to them. Their chairs were pretty comfortable. I did not have a comfortable chair. I had the crappiest, most rickety, run-down stool. It was very, very hard, and it encouraged me not to sit down a whole lot. These guys have their big padded chairs. It's also unfair.
like some webbing over here. And
DM is always suffering.
from the webs, almost like it's suspended from the ceiling. Your 11 is also enough to see what appears to be a dwarven face carved into the wall over here,
I never noticed it.
near a set of iron doors.
A little DM cheat. I didn't have a specific DC in mind when I had them make perception checks to spot things. I basically just had them roll. I just wanted them to roll the dice. Regardless of what they'd rolled, I probably would have told them the same amount of information about the face in one direction that they could go investigate, or the webs in the other direction which they could investigate.
Should we, can the group hear me? Yeah, I guess because of the stairwell, I can shout
A
back.
good dungeon always presents players with choices, or at least the illusion of choice.
For the spider!